what are some of the biggest financial advantages of owning a home versus renting?
Tax write-offs, tax
Yes.
write-offs,
Equity, definitely.
tax.
You
and
can rent
equity
out
building.
a room
Equity
and make
building.
money, additional income if you need to, or rent out your garage, or now people renting out their backyards and doing all kind of things.
Yep.
Welcome to the Mind Our Business podcast, where we dive into life's challenges and triumphs while exploring the world of entrepreneurship. Here you'll get honest conversation, practical insights, inspiring stories that will empower you to reign supreme in business and in life. Here we're all about real talk, real life, and real business. In this episode of Mind Our Business, we're talking about the keys to legacy, security, and financial power via home ownership. So whether you're already a homeowner or you're just thinking about it, in this episode, it's your guide to using real estate as a tool for empowerment and long-term success. So before we get into it, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves so they will know who's behind the mic.
Well, I'm Dr. Carmen, your go-to PhD for menstruation mindset mentoring and also perspective shifting group experiences.
I'm your girl, Tamika, your favorite certified recreation therapist, always advocating for those with disabilities and our senior population.
Hey everyone, I'm Gigi Garcia, owner and director of Moves Dance Studios and Vibe Together Bay Area.
And I'm Simona, a personal stylist and a fashion shopper, curating looks with you in mind.
And I'm Carla Shahid, the realtor and real estate planner, where I help people build, protect, and transfer wealth through real estate. So we're going to open up with a quote from my girl, Miss Suze Orman.
Okay.
So what
love
Susie
her.
says, I do too. She
love
is
her.
so knowledgeable, okay? So what she said is owning a home is a keystone of wealth, both financial affluence and emotional security. So what do you guys think about that when that quote, like, how do you feel?
I agree with Susie on almost everything. I wish I could insert Susie brain in mind with that finance, but yes, definitely emotional. It's definitely, a source of wealth, something you can lean back on, and everyone should tap into the home.
Absolutely. So think about this question. Why is owning a property such a powerful symbol of stability and success, particularly in communities of color where generational wealth gaps can be significant?
Ooh, those generational wealth gaps ain't no joke.
Well, you
in our
said it
community.
right there. Those
Yeah.
generational wealth
Yeah.
gaps, like
Yeah.
when like people of color, like the minorities, we come from families that had nothing, and they would come to the States to achieve a particular goal or dream. And real estate is one of the biggest purchases that you will attain in your life.
Absolutely.
So when you achieve that, when you sign in and you get the keys and stuff like that, I mean, it's just this adrenaline rush, and you feel this sense of achievement and success.
Right.
And it's not as often, in our communities, in the minority communities, like it was. I mean, back in the days.
Right. The gap is real, and I just
Yeah.
love being a homeowner. But it's very important. So we do have generational wealth, something to give to our kids, our grandkids. So we, like our ancestor had land. We had land. We own things. Now the gap is so big due to life circumstances and the way that it is. But it's very important to have that piece, and it's security and it's safety. And it's something you can always
Safety.
lean back on, or if you get in debt, you can sell it, pull out from it. You
Right.
can do all kind of things. So it's
Yeah.
emotional, definitely.
Yeah. So they say owning a home or owning a property is like the American dream, So, I hear that a lot. And it is, because that's something that a lot of people, they strive towards. And like you said, Gigi, it is one of the largest purchases
is.
that someone will make, So,
I think also due to a lack of financial literacy in general,
yes.
for a lot of people of color, just owning a home just doesn't even seem like a realistic, thing that they can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I just think in general, of course, home ownership is what we're talking about today
Yeah.
is, a part of building, a legacy of wealth. But for so many people, their families don't talk about money only in the sense of we ain't got none.
Yep.
But not that
Real
like
talk.
planning,
Yep.
Right.
not the
Planning.
the future planning,
Right.
and some of the things we're going to talk about today. So I think that's why for some people owning a home is like, yes,
Sense of
I did it.
accomplishment.
I'm the
Yeah.
first person in my family or what have you.
It's a big deal too. So I definitely feel like, owning a home, getting your first property, like that's such a major accomplishment. And, it's just a great feeling. And I love to be able to help those first time home buyers and give them the keys to their house. It's just, it could be very emotional too at that time
yeah,
too,
I'm
because
sure.
it is a major sense of accomplishment.
I think one of the things in our community, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm just speaking from those that I've had these conversations with. When your parents own their home, and if it's brought, given to you, is passed on to you once they pass away or move and buy another house, whatever happens, the child doesn't have to start all over. And I think people miss that point. A lot of families like say, okay, you're 18, got to get out the house. And that person has to get their apartment. And you know what? Now they're, I hate to say it, and some people don't feel this way, but in my point, like you're throwing away money. You're throwing away money.
Right.
All right. But when you come from a situation where your family is able to pass down a home to you, right? Now
Blessing.
they're passing down stability.
Yes.
Yes.
They giving you a one up already.
Absolutely.
All right. So now you can move forward and focus on, advancing in your career or other areas in your life, and you don't have to struggle. You have that basic need already taken care of. That's kind of like the
yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy of need. And you got to have those basic things down. And having a home, having something that the owner can't say, "Hey, I want my house back. It's time for you to move out."
Right.
That gives you a peace of mind. And if you work the home the way it needs to be worked, which I know we're going to talk about later, you got money available and your own bank.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely will get into that
Right.
later,
Equity.
to all the
Yep.
benefits of home ownership. So why what are some of the biggest financial advantages of owning a home versus renting?
Tax write-offs, tax
Yes.
write-offs,
Equity.
tax,
Definitely.
tax.
You
and
can rent
equity
out
building.
a room
Equity
and make
building.
money, additional income if you need to, or rent out your garage, or now people renting out their backyards and doing all kind of things.
Yep.
But you know what? When I go back to taxes, I know for myself owning a home, because as a business owner, my office is in my house.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to write off a portion of my house. I'm able to write off a portion of my electricity, my utilities. I am able to, when I get into a rut, I have money available for me. And so it's the tax and then you can write off some of the interest and your loan. Versus when you're renting, you're giving that money to the other person to pay their mortgage.
And you get
Okay?
nothing in return.
And you get
nothing.
nothing in return. And so that's the main difference.
Yeah.
It's a peace of mind,
It is a
definitely.
peace of mind. Yeah.
Flexibility too. Like you can customize your own home when you own it.
Yes.
You can customize it and
Yes.
have it where you want it. Like if you want to knock a wall down and
Right.
redo the kitchen, you can't do that when you're
You don't have to
No,
ask the
ma'am.
landlord, can I paint?
No, ma'am.
Can I do this?
You
Can I
can
do
paint
that?
your wall
Or your
red,
rent's going
green,
up
and
every
blue,
year.
whatever you want to
Right.
do.
You,
Right.
you can control your like
Your
monthly-
environment,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely stability, flexibility, and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's something though, right? So if you take a person who's renting, someone that's renting for $3,000 a month versus someone who's owning, and their mortgage is $3,000 a month. So if it was all equal, right?
Okay.
Over a course of 5 years, okay, that renter has what?
Zero.
Zero. There's nothing. But someone who has owned their home for those 5 years, their potential equity gain is anywhere between $65,000 to $85,000. That's in like a 5-year time, and that's like on average, I mean, give or take, there's like money that you have for down payment and things like that. But at the end of the day, at that 5-year mark, you're looking at equity, and that's huge, right? So yes, you're throwing money away, of course, when you're renting, but I mean, it does serve a purpose because it does give you housing, it gives you shelter, right? But when you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, if you're able to afford a payment like that, why not buy, right? Why not buy? Because of all the reasons that you guys just talked about, the tax benefits, the stability, and all of that. Because guess what? I have dealt with many people who have said, you know what, I think I need to buy a house because the owner of the property is selling.
Yep.
And now they're in a frenzy trying to, find a place, because they don't want to go through that. I remember back when we were in a distressed market and there was a lot of foreclosures and short sales and things like that, where owners had stopped making payments on their property, but they still were collecting rent. Then those renters was like, hey, what? We got to get out.
That's cold.
So, there is power in owning a property, just definitely.
I think it's important too that you guys do those workshops that you guys do for education, because I know a lot of people in our community just don't know, and they are paying and they don't think it's attainable. They always be like, oh, I don't know, it's so much work, or I don't know, I have to work on my credit first, and and instead of letting you and your lender to work together to help them, I think it's the gap is because of the miseducation as well.
I agree.
Yep.
My mom told me that her neighbors on both sides of her are renting their homes. One is paying $5,000 a month for rent.
Yeah.
The other, clutch your pearls if you have them, $7,000 a month.
God.
Yes. So, and I know that's extreme, but I've talked to many people that's paying $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month. And I own my home, and right now I'm paying $2,300 a month.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, the rent is way more than the mortgage.
Yeah.
Plus, I have my own bank and my own resources.
Absolutely.
So I think people just don't realize the power. And because maybe they didn't come from a household that was home ownership, they don't think that that's the thing to do. And they don't understand all the extra stuff that goes with the benefits of having ownership. I even know people that own homes that don't know how to use their equity.
Right.
So there's so much education that needs to be had.
You're right. More education needs to be had. I am definitely a home ownership advocate.
Yes.
I grew up with, my parents didn't own a home. However, my grandparents did, and I have family members who were homeowners, but it was not taught to me, and so,
Not at all.
It wasn't taught. So it was just something that, I wanted to have for myself because I was put in a job where I saw it, so I was exposed to it. So definitely more education for sure. Yeah.
So, Carla, this could be a lot of information, for people who've never bought a home before.
Right.
So what should first-time homeowners really know or home buyers, what should first-time home buyers really know before they start the process?
I think what they should know is, I think that they should definitely contact a professional real estate agent who they feel comfortable with. But before they get to that point, if they want to analyze their budget, see how much they can afford, like monthly, but for sure, talk with a real estate professional, because that real estate professional should be able to, one, get you connected with a good lender and work out a plan to where, to break things down, because buying a house can be very overwhelming and it can be scary, and some people are very private, and they don't want to expose so much information, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's what I like to do is just break it down in like steps. So one, have a conversation with with the realtor. So for me, I would have a conversation with you.
Right.
I'll talk about what it is that you are looking for, like where do you want to be, like, and then most importantly, what's your comfortable monthly mortgage payment? You know, how much are you comfortable with? And from there, get them connected with the lender. And I have some awesome
Yes, you do.
lender partners.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so whether you need down payment assistance, you know, grants or what have you, you know, those are all, you know, options that could be available, you know, for you. So I would say that is like the first step, because you want to know how much you're actually approved for before you start going out house shopping. So I get calls because I'm a Zillow preferred agent, and, you know, I'm online and things like that. But I'll get a call. Someone wants to see a property. I'm like, okay, yes, we can definitely go do that. But we really should get you approved first, because we need to know how much you can actually, you know, afford. And they're like, oh, no, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Okay, well, maybe you are approved, but maybe you don't want to spend that much on, like, that monthly payment might not be good for you. Right. So it's all fun to go out house shopping and all of that,
Dreaming.
you know, window shopping and all of that kind of stuff. But really taking care of the business and the financials, that part is first, because then you'll know exactly how much you have to work with. You'll know the steps on what it takes to become a homeowner. So, yeah, so that's what I would say.
That's great
Cool.
advice.
Did I explain that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that
You
was
should
great
have
advice.
tea.
Yes.
Yeah. to the
Okay.
T.
Okay.
What do you feel? And I know this probably goes more onto the lender
Yeah.
side, but I am a big person on credit scores, because it's not about just your credit score, it's about what it means. And you building yourself up, paying your bills on time, prepare yourself for, you know,
Yes.
for even being able to qualify for a loan. And your interest rate makes a huge difference on your payment. And that's associated with what?
Yeah.
Our credit scores.
Yeah, it is
Right.
associated
And it's
with
like
credit score.
pay your bills, figure out, when you go to a realtor
Yes.
and they hook you up with that lender, that lender will most likely talk to you and educate you about your credit score. This is what you have right now. This is some repair you may need to have,
Yep.
and work you through it, because you can go a whole year with just going through the repair, but you're with
yes.
these professionals that's
Yes.
going to help you.
You through the
And when I talk to people on a regular basis, they're like, I don't know what my credit score. Well, if you want to go to this next level, you need to start caring.
I agree. And I think that's something else that we need more education around, because, you know, a lot of people are not, they didn't grow up in households where
Correct.
they talked about the importance of your credit score, the importance of paying bills on time. So I think there needs to be more education around that. I do talk to people who want to be a homeowner, but they have challenged credit.
Yeah.
You know, so I work with people with challenge credit, and, you know, my lender will put them on a plan, and whether it's a 6-month plan or a year plan, let me tell you, when they get to that point, once they do everything that they were told to do, and they're at that point where I always say, okay, you got your golden ticket. Your golden ticket is your pre-approval letter. Now we can go out and shop. It's such a rewarding feeling for them, because they didn't know, or maybe they had some life challenges where they had a setback. Maybe they couldn't afford it at that time. So,
Yeah.
you know, people with challenge credit, and I can say I've had challenge credit too. So,
yeah.
Okay.
you know,
Me too.
and
Hello.
I mean, it's just the way of life, you know. So there are some programs or products out there where loans are not credit score driven.
What?
Right.
Nice.
So
Wow.
you can actually buy a home in, you know, in the 5s, you know, or, you know, but we
That's
definitely
good to
want you
know.
in the 6s. But, you know, there are some products, but your interest rate might be higher. You know, there are some other factors, but there are products that's not credit score driven. But yes, there definitely needs to be more education around the importance of credit and how to build credit, how to protect your credit.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was one of those people that had to go through that time frame of when the market kind of crashed, and I had to short sell my home. And after you short sell, and I was a homeowner before that, 2 homes before that. And when I went through that, that was devastating for me, because I was used to owning my home. And my credit score for the first time in my entire life just said, And so when your credit score is low, your credit card interest rates, it just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I tried to buy another home a couple years later. It wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. And so I really had to look into, how do I rebuild my credit score? And so with me reading, and again, hey, I'm not the professional. I'm just saying my experience.
Yeah.
With me, I learned how to put away my debit card. That was one of the things that I read in a book. Put away my debit card and use 2 credit cards. Now, you have to be very responsible, okay? But the point was, I purchased everything on my personal credit card, and I had a business credit card. So, separate, 2 different transactions. For my personal, I would buy all my things that I need to do, your groceries, everything you need to do. And then at the end of the month, I paid it 100% off. My credit score jumped after about a year.
Yeah.
It jumped, and my credit score is high as I don't know what. I was like, what? My credit score is that? And it's just because I was able to control my expenses because I could see them.
Yeah.
With a debit card, it's out of your bank account and it's gone.
Yes.
You know, you have no control of that. You don't realize that you done spent all this money partying, you know? Yes,
Yeah.
I said that for Simona.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think you could probably teach a class on credit.
Well,
know?
it made a whole lot of difference, all honesty. And that's just from reading
Yeah.
books.
But again, that's education.
Yeah,
you know?
YouTube,
But the
University
lender
too.
would know stuff like that
Well,
as
the
well.
lender is going to tell you exactly what you need to do
Exactly.
to build your credit up, you know,
Right.
but to protect your credit and to keep it that way, I mean, those are helpful tips. And I think, again, more education needs to be brought to light on that.
And then when I did my the time I was doing my purchase with you guys, I was telling people, like, you don't have to pay a credit repair. The lender will tell you exactly what to
That
do,
is
or
very
don't
true.
pay this, because I was like, oh, I think I owe Comcast from 8 years. He was like, don't play it because it's going to be fresh on your credit report now. Let me tell you the steps, and we'll write some letters and do some things and get things in order. So definitely the workshops that you guys do are wonderful and
Thank you.
need it.
And stop going to department stores and every time they offer you a card, getting a card. Yeah, some
take
people
those.
have 8 different cards from, and I'm like, what are you doing? And so for me, I just don't think that's a great choice unless you go to that place all the time. And then another thing I learned is that when you're not using a certain credit card anymore,
Yeah.
don't drop it because it can mess up your credit score as
Right,
well.
don't
Just
cancel.
let it die out.
Yeah.
Just let it die out.
Yep. We'll do another discussion on some credit. Okay.
Yeah, credit is important.
Right. But that is an important part of buying a house.
That's how you
too.
pick your man too, but that's a whole nother subject.
That's a whole definitely. a
Manifesting our
different-
partner,
yes.
part 3.
Let me
Yes.
see your credit score.
That's a different topic.
Let me see your credit.
For sure.
Lord.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So
goodness.
what role does mindset play in believing homeownership is possible?
It's everything. Because if you don't believe it, then you're not going to put forth the action into getting to that point.
Also, can I say this? In our community, we tend to be bougie and kind of ghetto. So some things, and also some people may live in a luxury new apartment with all the amenities,
Yeah.
and they qualify for something that's old from the 1950s and 60s that they may have to fix up at that same rate, even though you have to kind of downsize. They don't want to do that. So some people who can qualify say, no, I'm not living in anything old, but now you're subjected to annual raises and it's out of your control. But some people are opting for that, to have a pool, a gym, rooftop, and
So
things
you think
like
it's
that.
more like keeping up with the Joneses? They're just trying to upkeep a
No,
certain
no,
look
that's just their
versus
preference.
wanting
No,
to.
it's not that they don't know they can. They just say, no, I want something. I'm not going to buy something old. But what's going to happen? They're not going to be able to be in the market. They're going to get outpriced in California. Then you'll be renting forever because you're
Yes.
so bougie, or you got to have all these things,
Right.
and of course it makes life easier having these amenities. I mean, I wanted to. When I was looking at model home stuff I can't afford. I start there and be like, okay, I have to take the ideas. You always want to look
Right.
higher, but
Yeah.
sometimes you do have to go downsize a little bit, right?
Yeah. So I tell people, like, basically get in where you fit in. So what is your budget? And let's get the best that we can within that budget,
Right.
So, rule of thumb, location. But for some people, it might not be that. It might mean that they need to have a 3-bedroom. So if you need to have a 3-bedroom, get the best 3-bedroom that you can get, that you can afford, I should say. So for me, it took me like 2 properties to get to the property that I am in right now. So I do believe if you can't get that dream home right now or that house that you really want, get what you can right now, because oftentimes you will build equity, and that equity, when you go to sell, that's money that you can use towards your next purchase. For sure.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
tell you to dream big, but you're gonna
Crawl
dream
before
big.
you walk.
Yeah.
But a
Definitely,
good
right? You have to
realtor
crawl.
like you
Yeah.
will say, okay, this is your ultimate goal, and we're gonna work towards that. But let's
Right.
start here first, where you can afford,
Absolutely.
and make sure that you are, like you said, your payments. So that connects to your house, right? So your payments are something that's easy to pay. Don't stretch yourself so much that it causes that stress. So make it so that this payment is very easy for you to do, and say, hey, 2 to 3 years, I'm calling Carla back. Now let's look at my equity. Have I built enough equity? Now I'm ready to go to the next step. Because we know a lot of places in California, it doesn't take long to build the equity you need to move to that next level
Right.
of your home that you can get
Right.
to. And
Yeah.
it won't take long to get to that dream house.
Right. And again, during our first consultation, I always ask, what's your comfortable payment for your housing? What's your and some people will go like really low. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but this is what we can get for this, right? But what's your range? Like, what's your range? Okay, I can go up to 3,500, but I really want to stay at 3,000. Okay, then we could look at it, because sometimes people will stretch a little bit as long as it's within their budget, right? We don't want, if 3,000 is your budget, we don't want you to go to 4,000. But if it was a house that had everything that you needed and wanted and all of that good stuff, maybe you'll go to 35. So it's good to have like the range. And when you guys first got your houses, was that payment a little scary for you at first?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but it's always scary because you know that you have the ultimate responsibility of it, and you get that little fear of loss.
Yeah.
So it is a little scary for your first home. You're excited too, though.
Right.
And I think you're very excited, but then it is a little scary because you're like, oh, this is real responsibility.
Okay.
Well,
So the
mine was
responsibility,
$100 cheaper than my rent. So I was like,
Wow.
wait a minute.
Yep.
And my mom always said, if people buy it, it would be cheaper than their rent. So I was like, oh, people don't know this. Then people said, well, don't do a house because you have yard maintenance. I got some cheap landscaping, some cheap labor,
Yes.
some people to help, some relatives. So it wasn't even that bad. But no, it actually was cheaper.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay,
So it does depend when you buy, and
Yes.
how interest rates are. What about you, Carmen, Dr. Carmen?
Like when I first bought my
Yeah.
first home, I was in my mid to late 20s,
Uh-huh.
I think, and married at the time. And oh my gosh, it was such a learning curve because neither of us knew what we were doing, right? Like you mentioned earlier, in our household growing up as a kid, we had a lot of talk about how we couldn't afford stuff.
Yes.
And didn't
Yes.
have money, but we never talked about home buying and the process. So, my husband and I knew nothing. We had a realtor that was referred to us through a first-time home buyers program, and it just felt like there were so many hurdles to jump through to get that home. And when we finally got those keys, I boo-hooed. I cried, yes, because it just felt like such a challenge. And partly because we didn't know what we were doing, so we didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And then it was scary to like, okay, this is gonna be your payment. And you're like, oh my God, So
30 years.
you're right.
Mhm.
Exactly. But one thing too, going back to mindset is, first, I think it's important to acknowledge that historically there have been systems of oppression in place to keep folks of color out of homeownership. So I think that that's really important to acknowledge. Just for example, my grandparents in the 50s were wanting to buy a home in a neighborhood that was predominantly white. And thankfully, there was another couple who was their friends who were white. So the white couple showed up presenting as if they were buying the home. And that was the only way that my grandparents could get that house,
Wow.
in that neighborhood. So it's just important to recognize that, because that has a longstanding impact on our mindset. And then also with mindset, if you've never done it before, it's so important to be coachable, right?
Yes.
To listen to what these amazing realtors like Carla are telling you to do and follow instructions. And you do have to be vulnerable and share what's in your bank accounts.
Yeah.
And
To the lender.
yes,
do.
yes,
Yeah.
all of that. So I think it's important to be coachable too.
And
Yeah.
patient.
Everything will be
patient.
exposed, right?
patient,
During
yeah.
the home buying process, everything is pretty much on the table.
Everything
Yeah.
is pretty
Yeah.
much on the table. The financial part of it, the lender handles that part.
Right.
So I don't even get involved. So me as a realtor, I'm not looking, I'm not checking for any of that until we get to the part where we are actually making offers and we have to show proof of funds. That's the only time that I actually get involved. But when I do meet with buyers, I do like to go over the entire process because there are so many steps involved, right? There are hurdles. It's very emotional too
Yes.
when going through it. So it depends on the market. If we're in a market where, it's very competitive, I'm going to say we might make offers on 20 properties before we get your property, but your property is your property.
And
It
it's
already
for
has
you.
your name on it, right? So we'll just go through this process, and I just lay everything out. And another thing to go back to actually like preparing to buy a house, I'll tell a lot of people like, okay, now's the time to go on that mortgage diet. So, what that consists of, like, just don't spend money just to be spending money, like frivolous. What's the word?
Frivolously.
Thank you.
No party at Tamika.
Right. So, maybe, if you're a coffee drinker and you get coffee, 5 days a week, maybe go down to one.
How
so
about
make
none?
little or
Make
none.
it at home, right, and make it
make
at
little
home, right?
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make little changes.
Right.
So because that's all preparing to, get your mindset ready
Mindset,
to
yeah.
actually have that mortgage. Because when I got my first mortgage, my first property and that mortgage payment, I was like, yikes, this is expensive, but, I'm like, okay, I'll just do beans and rice. And that's another thing I'll say, you might have to do beans and rice for the first year until you adjust, for it, but looking back, even my mortgage now that I have, I remember thinking, yikes. But now my mortgage payment is so much, it's less than what
Rentals.
what rentals are. Like if you
Right.
were to rent my house right now today, it probably would be like 1.5 times more than what I'm paying now.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something.
But that's
to
so
think
funny
about.
because I'm going to say I know a lot of people in our community who got a mortgage too high. They always said beans and rice for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm signed up for beans and rice, but we're going to make it work because they wanted a piece of the American pie.
Right.
But that's not everybody's dream,
that
Yours,
right.
like-
It's not everyone's dream, but it should,
I think
hopefully
too-
this episode will pique someone's interest who may thought like, nah, I don't want to own a home, but the financial gain that you could get just from owning a home, just doing something because you got to pay to live somewhere anyway. So why not pay and invest in yourself?
But I think they're not educated to know the benefits to that
Absolutely.
extent. But have the mindset that you can own. And even if you think, I've heard people say, I'm not ready. How do you know you're not ready? You don't even know what you need to get ready.
Yes.
So I would encourage them to go to you and say, hey, I do want to own a home, but I don't know where to start. I don't know if I'm ready.
Right.
And then, you will get them what they need, the referrals that they need,
Yes.
and they will see where they are, at least really know where you are, because you're not the professional, they are.
And it's free. It doesn't
And
cost
it's
you
free.
anything.
Exactly. And it could be a year later, it could be 2 years later.
But you know what? I love when someone says, you know what, I don't know my credit and da 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 da
Yes.
da, and then we run everything, and then I'm like, girl, you
not
are
even as
approved.
bad as they thought.
You are approved. We could go shopping like
Right.
today.
Right.
They're like, what? Like, yes, you can. So you never know until you actually try. And the pre-approval process is not that
quick.
difficult. It's really quick because what my lender will do is just ask a few questions. And if the budget is right, because let's face it, in today's market here in California, if your affordability is $1,500 a month, that's a little challenging unless you're going to move, in the country or some kind of far, away from the Bay
Right.
Area for sure. But if it's within a range where, you can actually purchase something, he'll do a quick credit check and say, okay, this is where, you can be. And then, start checking, the other things. So what a lender is looking for is 2 years of tax returns, 2 months of bank statements, and your most 2 recent pay stubs. So that's what you'll turn in to get your official approval letter, right? But the initial over the phone, he'll run that credit really quick, and the budget is there.
And is it still 3 years if you're a business owner? I know it was for me at the time. They were like, you need 3 years. I said 3 years because I was kind of upset because I've always heard 2 years.
Yeah, there's so many good products out there.
Oh,
so
good. They changed it.
Okay. To have that. So,
excellent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't be afraid of ugly homes too. I like that. Like when we talked about stepping to getting to your dream home, and ugly home is what I learned when I took this investment class long time ago. Is that those are the ones that just need cosmetic work. Don't get thrown off. And I'm sure, Carla's like, hey, girl, listen, you can do this. You can do that. You can spruce it up. Just don't get distracted by that and say, this one is ugly, but this is what you can afford. It's in a decent neighborhood, but you just have to do a couple of things. Don't get distracted by that.
And it's just a stepping stone, right?
Exactly.
It is.
My mom always says you could decorate anything.
Yes. And my home that I'm in now was a hot mess when we bought it, right?
Yeah.
It had stains on the floor. I said, what kind of animal was in this house? And they had holes in the walls. Wow. You remember it was electrical cords hanging from. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. But now I love it. I love the house. But that was just a cosmetic stuff that really doesn't cost that much to take care of.
Some people cannot see past it.
They don't.
So
they don't.
I will always give suggestions, and I tell people okay, carpet and paint. That's kind of typical because you want to make it your own. So expect carpet and paint, right? But there's some people that can't get past, the kitchen is not like this and that. And, some people just get outpriced of the market because they're being a little, I hate to say it, too picky, and not seeing the bigger picture for what it is, because those things can be changed over time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you own it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Carla, break it down for us. How can home ownership contribute to generational wealth?
Well, we definitely talked about a few things already on how that can help with generational wealth, but having a home, having a property, you are going to gain equity over the course of time. I mean, markets go up, markets go down, right? But as a whole, you should be able to gain equity in your home. That equity, you can tap into that equity for life challenges or planning, like for college, business, purchasing another property. So you can leverage that equity in your home to set you up for the next chapter in your life, your business, or what have you, not to mention some of the benefits of, tax benefits, so that's huge. So you can save money on your taxes. You have write-offs. There's so many benefits to that. And then to be able to pass that property on to your loved ones, and for what I do too is I help people who, like seniors or people who, their home is no longer suitable for them, right? So that equity, they can use their house to help them get to the next chapter of their lives, whether that's assisted living, whether that's, just need to have money, coming in or what have you. Yes. So there's ways that people can leverage their house to create generational wealth and to help them.
Right.
What do you guys think? What did you guys say?
Well, you were talking about that whole equity piece.
Right.
And I definitely wanted to touch on the HELOC.
Right.
The home equity line of credit, Tamika bouncing her shoulder. So
that's my favorite thing in the world.
So tell us how you were able to use that wisely, Tamika.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. So in one instance, I had a car loan. I believe it was at 7%. When I applied for my HELOC, which we call it, it's at a 4%. So I was able to use that money, pay off the car loan. Now I have an interest rate of only 4% versus 7%. And so I'm saving a whole slew of money. Now, I do want to say another thing. to kind of go with the HELOC because it's going to free up more of your equity, the money that you have. In the long run, I do pay my mortgage every 2 weeks. And so I do the I always get it mixed up, bi-weekly payments, right?
Yes.
Bi-weekly payments, yeah, every other week. And so you don't no longer have that 30-year
Right.
mortgage, right?
Right.
And so
Cutting it
now
down.
it's cutting it down. And for my instance, I had them do the numbers, and it's 7 years off of my total length of the loan. Your interest rates are the fool.
Yes.
And so now I feel like I have paid off more of my house than I would have in a shorter amount of time. And now I have more equity than if I was just paying once a month. And it's no difference in payment.
It's no
And so
difference in
now I
payment.
use it to pay off that car. I've used it to pay off. At one point, I had a lot of expenses that was out of my control, and I paid off a credit card. Y'all know the interest rates on credit cards are crazy.
Yes.
And so I was able to pay that credit card off. So just having my own bank, that's what I look at it. It's my own bank. And now I'm going to be moving, and now I'm going to be paying off a mortgage with that equity. Mortgage free, what people think like that's not obtainable, but it is if you
That's
work
the
it when
biggest
you work
achievement.
it, baby.
Ooh,
Yes,
yeah.
that's
Work
the
it.
biggest
So they
achievement.
say to do what you were talking about, that making 2 payments a month. So first you have to make a full payment up front.
Yeah, you gotta be too much.
And then you start breaking your payments up. But you can also attain that by just making one extra payment a year. So one full payment. So however you want to work that. But there are ways, and you can, pay X amount more on your, add it,
On the
towards your
principal.
principal.
Yep.
So there's ways that you can pay down that mortgage faster. But going back to the HELOC, and what Tamika said, it is like having your own bank. So a HELOC is different from a second mortgage. Okay, so a second mortgage is like is like fixed. You get the money, and you're just going to be paying on it. An equity line of credit, HELOC, what that is, it is tapping into your equity when you want to. So you can get a home equity line of credit for $250,000 if you have that amount of equity in your home. That doesn't mean you have to pull out the $250,000. You can say, oh, you know what? I want to do a kitchen remodel. I need $20,000. So you can tap into that. You can draw from that, right? And then you can make those repairs, and then you can pay it back. And it's just sitting there. So it's good to have a home equity line of credit, because, some things do come up that's out of our control, and you want to be able to just get that money, quick.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're only paying on the interest of the money that you're using at the time.
Absolutely.
And then when you have paid it all off, it starts all over. That money's still sitting there for you versus going out and trying to get a business loan or some
Yes.
other kind of loan to start something. Once you pay that off, that money's gone. You have to reapply for it.
Yes.
But not with your equity line of credit. It's your bank. It's
It's your
sitting
bank.
there. It's waiting for you. You use it when you want to use it. You pay it back. Now you paid yourself
But you
back.
pay it back on a shorter term, right? It has HELOC is on a shorter term.
It's just lower interest.
On a shorter term, right?
Yeah, there are shorter terms on the
for
HELOC.
HELOC. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I think we need some education around it and equity in general. Because when I first needed to borrow from my house, they said, "Oh, you have $100,000 in equity, but you have to, pay this much back." I'm like, "Wait, I thought it was mine. Wait, I have to pay it. I didn't know before. I have to
Oh,
pay
yes,
it back.
yes.
Wait, it's my equity." So I'm like, "Wait." I'm thinking,
Yeah.
"Ooh,
Oh,
you."
we sell, yeah.
But later, I
Well,
found
because you
out.
have to
but-
remember the bank owns your house.
Yes.
You don't really own your
Oh,
house
yeah, I
until the
found that
mortgage
out,
is
so,
gone.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And
you
so
know-
when you think about it that way, initially, but you can get to owning your house free and clear.
Right.
If you use some of these tactics.
That's why we need
and
that
I'm sure there's
education.
more
Yes.
that we don't
Definitely
even
need
know.
that
Right, because we
education.
don't
But,
always know. But I was
yeah.
thinking, "Ooh, wait a minute. I'm about to
But
talk
look-
at this." So.
But look at it as a business opportunity also.
Yes, 'cause they
Like
can
you
charge
said,
people.
purchasing a second home. You may want to purchase a home for a child, paying off their college loans.
Yes.
Things of that sort. So having
leveraging.
this is, and then hey, when you trying to go get a business loan to open up a new business, that interest rate is very, very high. It's
Yeah,
gonna
it
be
is.
double digits.
Right.
Versus
hard
your
to get.
home equity line is typically much lower, and so now you're just spending less money. You don't want to give these banks all your interest.
Yeah.
Be your own bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Be your own bank. And, yeah, Be your own bank. I was gonna say the interest rates they do fluctuate.
Of course.
So you know.
Yeah.
But they do typically tend to be much, much lower than a credit card and things of that nature. But I do want to point out this, even though you are your own bank, it's not wise to use your equity as like just
Fun.
to keep paying off your credit cards or things like that, because I was in a market where it was a distressed market. And it was going good and good and good and good and good. And then it just like popped. So those people that took out all those home equity lines of credit, second mortgages and whatnot, they over encumbered their home. So when the market turned, they were upside down. So the good thing about a home equity line, again, is that it is there for you to use it. You can tap into it, but use it wisely. Yeah.
I had a friend that actually lost their home.
Yeah.
Because they were one of the ones that was using it to travel, using it for fun. And again, be responsible.
Yeah.
You have to be responsible. When you use it to gain assets or get rid of those large amount of debt, that will benefit you. But just using it just to have fun,
As a
that
credit
you're
card.
going to
You
go
need that
under.
education.
You're
Yeah.
going to go under.
Yep. All right. So, what's your message? Like, what would you tell someone who feels like home ownership is out of reach?
Again, start with you.
Start with you.
Contact you.
Start
Yeah.
with Carla
You know,
Shahid
yeah.
and Associates.
Right.
See the T-shirt?
Yeah.
The T-shirt.
Yeah.
Look, start with Carla Shahid and Associates.
Yeah.
I would definitely start with a professional and let them tell you what you need to do. Don't automatically take yourself out of it thinking you're not ready.
Right.
You may not be around people or have had the past experience of people around you with home ownership.
Right.
So you don't know what to do.
Right.
Go to the professional and find out what you need to do.
Yep. And Carmen, what would you say?
I would ask them, what's your why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to buy a home? And so that they're really clear about that, so that as they're undergoing that learning curve and all those hurdles,
Right.
even you as the realtor can always take them back to their why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say, Gigi?
I think to be sure you're ready for it, because when I purchased my first property, I knew I didn't want to be there for too long.
Yeah.
I ended up moving back here to California, and so it was also a challenge, getting rid of that property as well. But make sure that decide where you want to be, what area, and that, like you guys said, contact a professional and really understand and learn the process from the beginning to the very end, and be ready for it mentally. Because it's almost like a little part-time job. When I closed on my first house, I was like, you want what, and you need what, and you
why
want
again?
and what again, and you need to come and meet me where, and it was like, it runs you around a
It
lot.
does.
And I'm pretty sure the process is still the same, right?
It is. And I'm like, okay, look, you're going to feel like you're like giving blood, right? Like, it's like, you know what? Because,
this
like they'll
document and
ask
that
for
documents.
documents over and
Oh, my
over again,
goodness.
but just be prepared. And I think what helps people is having, understanding of how things will work, knowing that up front, Okay.
And that makes a difference in the realtor that you choose. And that's why it's
does.
important
That
with
explains the
you,
steps, yeah.
because you do take people through those steps and you tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah.
so that they can prepare mentally for it and they go back to their why and they feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people they just want to go shopping. They don't want to go through the consultation, but it is definitely important. And I feel that people who I do have a consultation with, I feel like it's just a better experience for them, for sure. So, all right, well, we touched on a lot, right? We touched on a lot. So we want to give the audience a challenge. Yes, we want to give the audience a challenge. So step 1 is to create a vision board. So take 15 minutes this week to write or create a visual of what home ownership means to you. So is it stability, legacy? What is it? Is it freedom? So identify that why. And then the second step is to get informed. So just choose one small actionable step based on today's episode. So you will be able to download a free home ownership guide. So we will provide, or I will provide that for you. And then if you want to have your credit pulled, or if you want to have a consultation to see where you are, that will be in the link that you can click on, and you can schedule some time. No obligation or anything like that, but it will be there for you. And then step 3 is to share your intentions. Drop a comment and tell us your next move toward home ownership. Or just let us know if you are a homeowner, like what your experience was. So anyway, before we go, as we do, we want to give a shout out to Mr. Percy Robinson that
Thank
helps
you,
us
Percy.
with all of
you,
this.
Percy.
Like, it would not be possible without him. So thank you, Percy, for doing this. So until next time, let's mind
our
business.